Yeah, it fascinates me too. And it's a sticky wicket. It seems to me that a lot of people have that. A lot of people have that egocentric, narcissistic, seeing injuries where they don't. The difference is people who commit targeted violence have a limited coping skills and decide that the way to solve the problem is with violence. That's what we call ideation. They come up with the idea, oh, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to hurt those bullies, rather than coming up with other solutions. And kids, of course, have smaller brains, so they can come up with less sophisticated solutions. That's one of the reasons I think it's more prevalent.
I want to solve the problems. So I'm going to collect the best subject matter experts, and we're going to have, that's going to be our professional network to solve problems. So when something like Sandy Hook happens and the NRA acts like a bunch of fucking idiots, we go, hey, we're in on this and we've got these subject matter experts and these are our thoughts on it, as opposed to whatever the fucking NRA does. So I would love to be able to continue our relationship and dialogue and, hire you if we can, when we can, and be involved with you if you're cool with that.
Me too. I've really enjoyed this conversation more than most, because you're coming at it from an understanding the nuance and trying to make a change in the world.
Yeah, it has to happen.
It has to.
What is going on, everybody? 'Tis I, the enigma of the gun airwaves, Miyanovich, welcoming you to Season 3 of the Liberal Gun Owners Lens podcast, where unprecedented perspectives are packed into the cargo hold for the LGO Lens spaceship Voyagio.
That's fucking Italian.
Don't believe that evolution is possible with guns and public safety in America? It's already happening, y'all. Minds are evolving. Think guns versus public safety is the only game in town, do ya? Think culture war is the big boss, do ya? Then keep your ass in the past. Everyone else, all aboard!
Since we're talking about the incels and sexuality and being undesirable, one of the specialties on your website is dealing with autism and threat. So the first thing I'll say, just to lead it off, is that we want to make sure that we draw the line between the autistic population being what it is, and then a small subpopulation of potential people who have autism being more vulnerable to be a threat, right? So there's a difference between the two, right?
Even more importantly, it's more likely that someone who's autistic is going to be the victim of bullying or the victim of fill in the blank than to be a perpetrator. So we got to remember that above all else. But it's also reality that some of our most notorious shooters, like we were talking about Sandy Hook, have been identified as being autistic. So we have this messed up situation where the public perception of a school shooter is someone who's autistic, which is false, a little bit true, but false, and puts people who are autistic at risk of being identified as a potential threat when they're not.
It's another avenue for bias.
Total bias. And it's one of my favorite topics to talk about, not only because I have so many cases about it and I've worked with autistic people for a really long time. I think my first internship in the autistic world was in 1990, to tell you how long ago it was. And I love working with autistic people. They're my most favorite people. Like I enjoy it so much, and it makes me angry when people are misidentified because they're not communicating or presenting themselves in the way that people think they should.
You mean like some people show quote unquote spectrum-y type traits, but they don't have ASD. Is that what you're talking about?
That too, that's an issue too, but it's when people are in your environment and they're not interacting with you in the normal way, they're not picking up on your social cues, so that makes you uncomfortable because they're not responding to you in the way that you presume that they will because they don't have a neurotypical brain. Sure. So then because you're uncomfortable, you presume that the issue is that they are a threat, when maybe the issue is that you are unusually uncomfortable around people who don't do exactly what you presume they will.
Sure.
And I have a million examples because I've worked so many cases of people who are autistic and have been misfingered as being threatening.
What's the reality of autism spectrum disorder and emotionality? Because you see a range of comments about it. And that would be like people who have autism don't have the same emotional radar or wiring and they're lacking shit. Or the other side, the other one is there's a lot of emotionality inside and there's just not the typical wiring to process it. And so there's another kind of a process going on. Is it both? Is it everything in between? Like, what's the view on that?
I think it's people who are autistic have the same range of emotions as every other human being on the planet and a different way of experiencing it and perceiving it and expressing it. So they may get really overstimulated and overcooked in a quicker way than I might, though there are definitely times in my life where I'm totally overcooked and I cannot handle another stimulus in my life and I need to curl up on my couch with a pillow over my head. We all do that, and it might get faster for someone who's autistic, and then they will, especially if they're younger, have that meltdown. And if they're older, have a shutdown and stop engaging. And it is more extreme, but it's the same thing that everyone else has.
So if we take that understanding over to this small subpopulation of mass shooters who may be autistic or are autistic and they're more vulnerable to engaging in such a thing, is there something else that's promoting a level of detachment? So if somebody who has autism spectrum disorder has the same emotional feelings, but they have a different way of dealing with it, is there some other kind of thing that's mixing in with that to create this, what we would perceive as a level of detachment from caring about other people, other people's lives, other people's emotions, other people's feelings, right? That's because that's sort of a typical interpretation would be. My interpretation would be that too. Have interactions with autistic people and they seem like they don't connect or they don't have the same value for what your feelings are. Also, what is the reality there? Why does a guy like why is he able to, that Sandy Hook dude, why is he able to go in there and do that? And it seems like he's entirely disconnected.
I'll challenge you a tiny bit on the difference between not being able to read other people's emotions and not caring about them.
Sure.
So if you don't perceive other people as having the same emotions, and for autistic people, it's more often a challenge in perceiving other people's motivations. So why might someone teasing you or bullying you or just talking to you? It's really hard for them to tell. And it's really also hard for them to see how their actions would impact someone else. So the kid who says, if you don't let me out of math class, I'm going to kill everyone. And the reaction to that is horror. They might not see that. They might just see, I'm out of math class. Win. I've got it. So that would be a really typical autistic presentation, which would cause concern. People would say he doesn't care that he's scaring everyone. And the answer is he doesn't see it. What he cares about is getting out of math class.
Right.
So how can we give him the skills to explain his predicament in a better way that doesn't scare people? Because if you sit down and explain that he's scaring people, he'll probably be horrified because that's not his intent. He cares about what other people think. He just doesn't see it. As far as Sandy Hook, I've read so much about him, and there's a lot of black box in there where we just don't know what was going on.
Yeah.
We do know that he was really isolated. We do know that his mental health needs were completely ignored, that he was identified early on as having a lot of different challenges, and the school didn't deal with it. Yeah. They kicked that can down the road and said, fine, you want to do homeschool, we'll just ignore you.
Yeah, it's intriguing to me to try to comprehend, because I think everybody needs to understand this. And that is the point that you brought up about not understanding the emotional impact of certain words or actions. That's intriguing to me because it's certainly not intuitive. At least to me, it isn't. You have to stop and think about it and process it. I don't think the answers are there yet. I just pulled up a paper that Reed Malloy was on for this.
The Malloy White.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's probably famous. Yesterday or something like that when I was thinking about this. People are working on it, right? But what my brain wants to focus on is the detached element of it. Not, again, we're not talking about all autistic people, obviously. We're just talking about this certain small subpopulation. Would there be anything else other than that mechanism where they just don't understand that's creating the detachment? Or are there other things that might also be creating? What would lead an autistic person to just go, fuck human life? Is it any different from when a neurotypical person does that? Is it the same thing?
Lots of the same thing. So the paper that you were referring to, I talks a little bit about fixation and that being something that increases risk. So we know that autistic people have a tendency to fixate on stuff, right? It could be Star Wars. It could be anything. But when it becomes guns or Columbine or the hurting of other people or the perceived grievance, that's when the level of concern goes up. And then the same paper also identifies psychopathy as being an issue. So when the thinking becomes more clouded and reason takes a jump out of the window, that increases risk too. But there's so many things about autistic people that are traditional risk indicators, like difficulty making friends, difficulty being accepted and feeling like a dignified, important part of the school environment. Those are all things that are challenges for autistic people. And I think that's why the risk level is slightly elevated.
I mean, I think about the pressure that was present in middle school and high school for validation and sexual validation, whether it's conscious or unconscious, it doesn't really matter. It's such a huge player. If you're sexually validated by other people, you're hot, right? Just that shit was like major. And to be completely on the outside of that with other struggles, I can't even imagine how profoundly difficult.
And to be unable to get into it, to know that you want it because you still have the biological urges that everybody has and no idea how to manage it.
Yeah. And I would imagine, so we know in school shooters generally, there's a lot of, let me go back. You can correct me on this because this is sort of my hip shot, street level jabroni psychologist in my head. There seems to be a lot of narcissism involved in many psychological or brain imbalances. It seems to, we know that I know from observation, there's a lot of self-loathing. And of course, you'll probably go, well, Randy, self-loathing and narcissism go hand in hand, right? But if I can observe people that they're depressed, they don't feel good about themselves, they have brain balance things or interpersonal balance things going on, I can observe that. They're more likely to take shit on themselves, have a black cloud over their head. And then there's other people who present like they're imbalanced, but they fucking know everything and you can't say a fucking word, right? So when I look at some of these cases of these mass shooters, there's a lot of that, you wronged me and I'm going to fucking make you pay because I'm the one. There's a pretty decent amount of that. Super ego, right? So could you talk a little bit about that? Like when you look at these cases or you've dealt with cases or you deal with people just generally, an imbalanced person with a phenomenally high ego.
So I'll give a hip shot right back to you. My hip shot is entitlement and the sense of belief that you deserve something. And in my work, those are the most dangerous people. And I sometimes think that one of the differences between the United States and other countries is our sense of entitlement to certain things. And that might be why we have more mass shootings. And when I work with people from a more communal culture, like a very interesting case with someone who immigrated from an Asian country, right? There's a big difference in the way that they see themselves in that communal kind of way in reaction to others. And they value their role in society better and their role in keeping society moving along more than we do in our really individualized culture. So for me, narcissism, maybe. Again, I hate putting labels on people because I don't know how useful it is. How is knowing that someone is really self-centered and egotistical and has that gooey marshmallow inside that narcissists have, how is that going to help us with treatment? If it's going to help us with management, then let's stick the label on it. Otherwise, why bother?
Yeah, you could call it high ego.
Yeah.
I just notice it.
Yeah, for sure. To take the life of someone else, you certainly have to value your own urges and desires over their entire life.
And one of the features that we see in the FBI's breakdown is, bullying or perceived bullying, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I just noticed that there's a link between perceived bullying and high ego, because you're seeing something that's actually not there in many cases. Perhaps it is, but there seems to be also a lot of hyperbole and making shit up to feed into this deal, right? This deal of screw you. I'm going to hand it to you people. You're going to learn the lesson. I'm going to teach you the lesson, which is behind a lot of this. And I just wonder, beyond what you said in terms of entitlement, is there a pathological root to that? Is there something that's completely innate and people that have a poor brain balance that's pushing that, right? To see shit that's not there, to right? So you take a little slight from one girl and a little slight from one guy over the years, and you turn it into this thing. This part fascinates me.
Yeah, it fascinates me too. And it's a sticky wicket. It seems to me that a lot of people have that. A lot of people have that egocentric, narcissistic, seeing injuries where they don't. The difference is people who commit targeted violence have a limited coping skills and decide that the way to solve the problem is with violence. That's what we call ideation. They come up with the idea, oh, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to hurt those bullies, rather than coming up with other solutions. And there are many, many, many other solutions. And kids, of course, have smaller brains, so they can come up with less sophisticated solutions. That's one of the reasons I think it's more prevalent in the younger set. But most people who have depression, most people who have autism, most people who feel bullied when they're really not and are professional victims, most people in any category are not going to go on to commit a shooting because it's a low incident situation. But we do need to attend to all of those things, especially in management. So if someone is that professional victim, how can we help them not become a professional victim and actually become an agent of change in their life? Because who wants to be a professional victim? That sounds terrible.
And you feel like, especially so we can set the record straight, because that seems to need to happen a lot with mental health, the destigmatization of things. We need the destigmatization of autism spectrum disorder, and having this newer line of papers and understanding for dealing with autism and threat and this small subpopulation that may be more vulnerable. You feel like that's justified, for just to summarize, both so we can set the record straight that, like most neurotypical people, most autistic people are not going to be doing a school shooting.
100%.
But we also need to understand of those that might be more vulnerable. Why might they be different than a neurotypical? Does that make sense?
Yes.
You agree with that?
Yes. We need to look at everyone's constellation of characteristics, regardless of diagnosis, and try to figure out what makes them to be more at risk or less at risk.
I didn't want us to go quite that far, but it's so fascinating. I want to keep going.
I know, me too. And I could talk about this stuff all day long. It's my favorite things. And you have such good questions.
Cool. Well, this, as you can see, I'm heavily invested in this. And I think this is the best conversation I've had so far. No offense to John, but this is the best conversation I've had so far on this. So I want to be able to do it again in the future. And like, we're legitimately in this to win it. Like, we're here to affect it. So, I think I mentioned this to you. I'm like, are you into Harry Potter at all?
I read them. Yeah.
So I can't remember the guy's name, but he's the guy that collects all the famous kids. Like, he likes to collect relationships with the famous kids. Yep. Can't remember the dude's name. And he has that big party and he brings all the famous kids from Hogwarts. And I like to do that with subject matter experts. Like, I want to solve the problems. So I'm going to collect the best subject matter experts, and we're going to have, that's going to be our professional network to solve problems. So when something like Sandy Hook happens and the NRA acts like a bunch of fucking idiots, we go, hey, we're in on this and we've got these subject matter experts and these are our thoughts on it, as opposed to whatever the fucking NRA does. So I would love to be able to continue our relationship and dialogue and, hire you if we can, when we can, and be involved with you if you're cool with that.
Me too. I've really enjoyed this conversation more than most, because you're coming at it from an understanding the nuance and trying to make a change in the world.
Yeah, it has to happen.
It has to.